The interiority of a character is often fundamental to giving them depth. Unfortunately, often when a character's inner thoughts are depicted, minimal effort is made to reconcile the inner character with the external events of the piece. Too much detail and the flow of a piece is derailed, too little detail and the characters are left feeling flat and hollow. But how do you depict interiority during moments of action or tension? Fiona Van Dijl's science fiction horror debut, Eden Green, takes a novel approach to the problem of interiority. Rather than maintain the titular character's internal narration as separate or detached from the novel's events, Van Dijl blends the two, allowing her to believably maintain the narration while heightening the tension. The earliest example of this technique is in the moment is a moment where interiority is subsumed by external events. His long, hot fingers weave into my hair and take hold. I scrabble at his hand, trying to pull his grip loose. Wham! My world is enveloped in white-hot pain. My face is on fire. He slowly raises my head, and I feel blood pouring down my chin. He slammed my face against the floor. I think he's broken my... Wham! Oh God, I would give anything for this to not be happening. I'm going to die, and it's going to hurt. I pull my tongue back, terrified it'll be cut on my teeth, but it's hard because I'm wheezing out a terrified moaning scream, and my tongue won't cooperate. Wham! I heard teeth break that time. Suddenly the pain is far away, very fierce but sort of distant. My forehead feels split open, his weight shifts on my back, and I feel his breath hot against my ear. You brought this on yourself, he whispers. Wham! The most obvious example of this technique is the onomatopoeia. Wham! Each time a wham is employed, the standard pattern of narration through the piece breaks. Interior character dialogue is reset, while the exterior events take on a heightened significance. Each instance of wham acts to create a new pattern in the text, each beginning and ending with wham. It causes the reader to see each wham as a premature conclusion to one stream of thought and a forced beginning to the next stream of thought. This allows Van Dijl to foreground the main tension of events by subsuming the character's own narration. The reader is shown what the character is thinking, and then are forced to disregard that as events exterior to the characters take precedence. Additionally, this wham loop is used to heighten the tension of the scene. On the surface, it adds a feeling of kinetic energy to the scene, a physicality that the reader can easily imagine. But on a deeper level, Van Dijl uses it to build the momentum of events. Each impact alters how Eden is narrating the story. After the first, Eden's narration is made up of shorter sentences, creating a sense of shock in the reader that mirrors Eden's own shock. After the second, the narration switches from short sentences into longer, more broken up stream of consciousness. Only commas separate Eden's thoughts, allowing the reader to feel the panic in the scene. After the third, the narration returns to a more traditional sentences, but the focus is placed between Eden and her attacker, my forehead, his weight. The sudden return to a more traditional sentence structure, coupled with the inward-outward focus of the narration, allows Van Dijl to show the reader that events are reaching their climax. Van Dijl's next manipulation of interiority occurs shortly after. This time she opts to merge the interior character moments with external events, but without including any separations and switching them. My neck, your neck is fine. Just breathe. What did you do to me? We saved your life. Now calm down. I plunge into red darkness and it's washing against my ears and getting into my teeth and can't breathe. And I struggle like there's 10 billion pounds on top of me. And all I can hear is a distant echoing roar. And I'm all alone and no one is, oh God, calm down. Oh God, stop screaming at her. Oh God. I hold on as tight as I can to a fabric, a sleeve, a shoulder, a riptide of blood sucking me back down, and I'm clawing and scrabbling and gasping, and I'm drowning in your car. I'm gonna die, I can't breathe, I knew this would happen. Throughout this section, Van Dijl shows the events places the events into one stream of consciousness. There is little distinction between internal thoughts and external events. Information is provided to the reader, but no borderline is determined. All events are happening at once in the same space. It is left to the reader's interpretation what is happening and what is being thought. The first section's exclusive use of uppercase lettering creates an implication for the reader that this is being shouted. However, the lack of punctuation prevents any kind of concrete separation from existing. The placement of "just breathe" undermines the later "we saved you" by further removing any kind of dividing line between exterior and interior perspectives. A reader is prevented from knowing whether events are occurring. The next section of lowercase lettering further complicates the narration. Van Daal's jumps straight into the changed lettering and implies that this section is more of an internal narration that is being delivered by the character. Red darkness and distant echoing roar are put to good use to anchor the reader to this assumption, as they both appear to be obvious instances of internal narration. But its placement directly following the uppercase lettering, as well as its lack of obvious lines of delineation, retroactively alter the perceptions the reader has of the preceding statements. Van Daal's final expression of this technique in this example is to switch between the two streams. She blurs the lines of interiority and exteriority, rapidly switching between narration and potentially external dialogue. The line, "I am drowning, you're in your car," is a perfect example of this. By placing it in the middle of the alternating section, Van Daal builds on the uncertainty she has previously given the audience to create a section that causes them to doubt where the lines of narration exist without sacrificing the overall pace or tone of the piece. The third example of interiority is when it is contrasted against the external narration. A deer stand rebuilt with parts of every horrifying, sickly, deformed, stitched, salvaged garbage and burned to destroy and never aging, never dying, never ending, never stopping. My hideous prison body paws about how he's pulling me against his chest, cupping the back of my head with one hand, pressing the other flat against the small of my back, bringing my mouth towards his, bending closer. Please God, no, don't take away the deer. I'm finally fixed. My body works now. It tells me to drop the gun and pull him closer, to grab and claw, to bite and then suck because I want, I hunger, I burn. This is taking away my head. I need my head. Slams me down across a table and presses me against it, hands everywhere, frenzied like an animal. I need to think, this is not what I want. Slowly his lips pull away. Similar to the first instance of the technique, Van Daal contrasts the events occurring inside her character with the events occurring in the wider narrative. The difference here is Van Daal has the external narrative and the internal narration contradict each other. In effect, she causes them to clash. Eden's thoughts and Eden's actions are played against each other for tension. This allows the reader to experience the same contradiction that the main character is undergoing, specifically the contrast between the internal shouting and the external calm of the main character's narration. This gives the reader the experience of losing control that the character... This gives the reader the understanding of losing control that the character is experiencing. At the beginning of this example is a long list of ways the main character feels wrong, followed immediately by a scene of her engaging in foreplay. By doing this, Van Daal is able to juxtapose Eden's horror at her continued existence, horrifying, sickly, deformed, and never aging, never dying, with her loss of control. Associating these two ideas together allows Van Daal to influence the reader into emotionally engaging with Eden's struggle. Additionally, the use of the internal screaming to represent Eden's rational mind being subsumed is an effective way of depicting the contradictory state of her interiority against the external narrative. By having the two sets of narration interrupt each other and begin to shorten as the scene progresses, Van Daal manages to show the reader the internal tensions of the character while building tension in the scene. I'll now give you a minute to read my creative piece. For my creative piece, I adapted my own versions of each of the examples of interiority I displayed earlier in the presentation. I took a less horror-themed route than Van Dahl and instead opted for a piece of superhero genre fiction, so it's a little campy. The first instance happens during the captain's flight over Toronto. Each blast impact distracts both the character and the reader and builds the tension of the scene. The pattern of narration, impact, and narration is maintained, leading to it building up to the moment where the captain realizes he's fighting Yuri. While not as brutal as Van Dahl's version, it still foregrounds the scene and underscores the character's internal attempts to understand the situation while they are being assaulted. Well, harmed. The second is the moment the captain is holding up the roof. The blend of internal narration and external stimulus is slightly less divided than in Van Dahl's example, but it still serves as an excellent example of the ways in which interiority and external narration can be blended together to create a sense of confusion and distress for the reader. While somewhat tropey, the captain's attempts to hold up the roof were definitely foregrounded by his panicked and confused narration during the scene. And finally, as the captain attacks Yuri, the contrast between his internal rage and his calm description of the events unfolding around him serve to highlight his internal state. The final kill him does the job of revealing the character's interiority extremely well. By contrasting his internal rage, by contrasting the captain's rage at the senseless loss of life with his desire to help those still trapped in the rubble and wreckage of the collapsed factory, I believe I was able to successfully highlight how differences between external and internal narration can cause tension in a scene to build and build to a payoff and all right, hang on, with his desire to help those still trapped in the rubble, the wreckage of the collapsed factory. By using this particular piece of narration, I believe I've successfully transferred over this final example of Van Dahl's work and shown how contrasting internal and external narration can successfully build tension in a scene, as well as revealing more about a character. Thank you for reading and listening. References and